Are all parties ready then? Good? Okay.
All right, we will call to order our special zoning hearing board meeting for August 2nd. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do we have any opening comments or? I think we do. Solicitor announcements?
As typically, this would be where I would give the public comment party status, but seeing that we only have counsel and the applicant, I believe, in the gallery, we're going to forego that. But I will note that two items that the board did meet in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss questions of law, and that this application was initially scheduled for the April 26, 2022 hearing, was continued on the record until May 24th hearing, and then the June 28th date, and then was re-advertised for the purposes of tonight's special meeting of August 2nd, 2022. Thank you.
All right, so I guess we'll start the hearing. So this is the application, 4-2 of 22 application for Harrell Assisted Living Homes LLC. Applicant appeals the zoning officer's denial of a home business permit application. The applicant brings a validity challenge to sections 550-43B8A and section 550-43B8B for a special exception criteria for group home quarters. The applicant requests approval of the special exception for group home quarters pursuant to the terms of section 550-8, 550-15.c, 550-17D, and 550-43. This property is situated at 1202 Agnew Drive in Drexel Hill, PA. It's the R3 residential district and in the 3rd council district. I think that's what we have for right now. I guess the first portion of the application that we will discuss is the applicant's appeal of the zoning officer's denial of the home business permit. So I think, Ms. Richardson, you're up first.
Yes, thank you. All right. Not tall. Good evening. My name is Courtney Richardson. I am here representing Joshua Chess.
Courtney, just 1 second.
What
Please
I do?
go off the record for a second. I think we're going to have to turn it off.
Yeah, we can't hear.
And suffer. So, low fan speed doesn't help anybody. Go ahead, Ms. Richardson.
Good evening again. My name is Courtney Richardson. I represent Joshua Chash, the zoning officer for Upper Darby Township. I would like to present him for a direct examination, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I do.
Mr. Chash, can you state your name for the record?
Joshua Chast.
And what is your occupation?
I am the Assistant Director for License and Inspections for Planning and Zoning and the Zoning Officer.
How long have you served in these roles?
I've been the Assistant Director for about 1.5 years and the Zoning Officer for about 5 months.
And are you familiar with the property located at 1202 Agnew?
Yes.
How are you familiar with this property?
I first became familiar when it came up in April as an application, as Ms. Griffin reached out to the township. I researched it then, and then I visited the site several times as it's been advertised for previous zoning hearing boards, including this one.
So, Mr. Trash, just for clarification, did you issue the initial denial for the business, home business permit?
Yes, it was signed by our deputy, or by our CAO, Vince Rangione, because he was filling an interim at that point in time. But it was my department and my work that got to that point.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is provide to the board, to the applicant, and to Mr. Chass the denial letter for the home business permit application. I have copies for the board, copies for council, and for Mr. Chass.
And Ms.
May-
Richardson, if I may, I note that I failed, as we typically do in our procedure, to mark the board's exhibits.
Okay.
And the home permit denial is one of those that we
Okay.
can reference. So at this time, I'm going to enter the board's exhibits, and then I can let you continue, just so
Thank
we have them identified and admitted. So the board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB 1 will be the application. ZHB 2 will be the settlement sheet. ZHB 3 will be the title services report. ZHB 4 will be the notice photos for the April 26, 2022 hearing. ZHB 5 will be proof of publication for the April 26, 2022 hearing. ZHB 6 will be the addendum to the appeal. ZHB 7 will be the home permit denial. ZHB 8 will be the notice photos for the August 2nd, 2022 hearing. And ZHB 9 will be the proof of publication for the August 2nd, 2022 hearing. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. I'm sorry, could you, the exhibit,
It's board 7 is home denial,
thank you.
home permit.
Okay, so, Mr. Chair, so, with that being said, if it's board 7, would you like me first to? All right, here we go. Mr. Chass, I've handed you what has been marked as Board 7, the denial of the home business permit application. In the denial, what remedy did, I'm sorry, let me back up. Mr. Chass, do you recognize this document?
Yes,
What is it?
it is a denial letter sent shortly after application was made for 1202 Agnew Drive.
Is this a true and accurate copy of the document as you are familiar with it?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chass, in the letter, was there a remedy that was provided in the letter to Ms. Griffin about her denial?
Was there a what?
A remedy, I'm sorry, a remedy.
Yes, the remedy was to appear in front of the zoning hearing board. It states that in the letter, and then we also attach in all of our denials a application or the petition for the zoning hearing board as well.
And what relief could she seek in front of the zoning hearing board?
What relief?
Yes.
Special exception relief. She
And
would, yeah.
Could you explain what exactly a special exception is?
Sure. A special exception is a permitted use that has additional regulations that need to be checked by the zoning hearing board and approved.
So what about this particular application required, in your opinion, a special exception?
The fact that it qualified under our definition of group home or group quarters. Group quarters require special exception in all residential zoning districts.
Could you share the definition of what group quarters is for the zoning hearing board, please?
Sure. Is it all right if I read it from our code?
As long as that's okay with the board.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes. I thought I had it right. Okay. Group living quarters.
Could you, before you start, can you just share where you're reading from?
Oh, what?
Could you share where you're reading from?
Yes, I am reading from our codified ordinance on E Code 360, Section 550-56, definitions of terms, term being group living quarters.
Thank you.
Definition, a residential facility used as living quarters by 4 or more unrelated individuals, each of whom is a person with a disability within the meaning of the Fair Housing Act 42 USC 3601 ET-SEC. As amended, living together long-term as a single, non-transient housekeeping unit with such non-resident staff as may be needed to assist the residents with their daily life activities. To be considered a single, non-transient housekeeping unit, all residents must have common use of and access to all living areas, eating areas, bathrooms, and food preparation and serving areas. A group living quarter shall be considered a family as defined herein. The maximum number of residents for a group living facility as defined herein shall not exceed the maximum number of occupants as set forth by the applicable building code, fire code, and any other similar code that sets forth a maximum occupancy limit for a dwelling or building.
Thank you, Mr. Trash. Just for clarification, can you share what the application itself for the property located at 1202 Agnew, what was it requesting exactly? Or I'm sorry, could you share what was the subject of the business permit?
It was requesting what we would qualify as group living quarters, a shared living space that was not apartments for individuals met with some sort of disability under the Fair Housing Act, living together in a long-term situation with care.
How many people?
4.
were- Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Chass, one of the contentions of the applicant's counsel is that this use is approved by right because it's considered a family. Is that correct?
It is not. It's approved by special exception because group living quarters are considered family, but they have extra regulations according to our zoning code.
No further questions.
Okay. The applicant wants to cross.
Mr. Chast, when you met with, did you meet with Ms. Griffin?
I believe we spoke over the phone a few times, and then we met briefly when she either handed in the application or we were giving her posters for the first time.
Okay.
And we spoke through email.
Now, at the time that you looked at this application, back in, would have been March, April timeframe, correct? At that time, did you look at it or examine it as if the definition of family at that time, or did you simply jump right to group living quarters?
I think it was fairly clear from the definition that was provided in the application that it met our group living quarters definition.
Okay. Would you agree with me that a particular use could potentially meet 2 different definitions at the same time?
Sure.
Okay. And you stated that what Ms. Griffin proposed to do was to have a shared living space, correct? Everybody would have, so that means everybody would have access to the home.
Correct.
Okay. That these would be individuals who are unrelated, correct?
Correct.
And are you aware that Harrell Assisted Living Homes is a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay. And that, according to Ms. Griffin, these individuals will be living there long-term?
Yes, I think that was in the application.
Okay. And the definition of family under the zoning ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you want to pull it up, you can, just let me know when you have it in front of you.
I'm there. Did you want me to read it?
Well, I was going to walk it through.
Okay,
walk
no,
through
I'm
it.
there.
Yeah, yeah. So it says, it states any number of individuals living in a single nonprofit housing unit, correct? Doing their cooking on premises, when said individuals are related by blood, marriage, adoption, or living together as a single nonprofit housekeeping unit, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And doing their cooking on the premises. And a group home as defined herein shall be considered a family. These two definitions are kind of one and the same, correct?
I don't know if I consider them one and the same.
Or not one and the same, but they're contained within each other, essentially.
Yes, yes, you could consider both. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And further on, there's a number of sort of lettered bullets, correct?
That's correct.
And that's the group shares the entire dwelling unit. They live and cook together as a single housekeeping unit. The group shares expenses and food, rent, utilities, and other household expenses. And they're permanent and stable. A lot of the same things you talked about as far as group home, correct? Okay. And did you do any research as far as case law, how these things are treated, and whether or not?
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Chass is actually a zoning hearing board. It's not an attorney. I think that's outside.
It's his determination that's at issue here, and whether or not these meet the definition, and whether or not they're under, by law, it should be a by right use.
I don't know if there's truly anything we can rule on there. I think Mr. Chass can answer the question as to whether he reviewed case law or not, and you'll have an opportunity to address it on redirect.
No, I did not review any additional or any other case law.
Okay. All right. No further questions.
Is there? Yep. Go ahead, you can come up.
Mr. Chass, what is your role as the zoning officer? What is your job? Gracious. What is your job as the zoning hearing board, zoning officer for the township? What is your job? Could you explain that, please?
Sure. So I have a few roles. My first job is I process all permits and applications that come in, and I check them against the zoning code, and then I issue approvals or denials based on that determination.
Would you,
Um,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Would you ever look up case law regarding a particular application?
No, I use the zoning code as to make my determinations.
And making your determinations if a application requires a special exception, what do you do?
I check the permitted use table. I find the zoning of the property. And if it is a use that requires a special exception, then I deny it, write a letter saying they need a special exception, and refer them to the zoning hearing board to petition for a special exception.
And you denied the permit in this case, correct?
Correct.
And why did you do that?
Because they did not have a special exception for group living quarters at that address.
No further questions.
Okay.
Anything further, Mr. Long? I would just ask that you wait until the cavalry passes by.
You can move that stand too to accommodate you.
Yeah, I think it's.
Sorry. The sun comes right in my eyes. My thought was to present Ms. Griffin in order to present what her plan was.
I didn't know if you had any
questions?
recross for Mr.
Oh.
Chast.
Just very briefly, one last question.
Hold on. All right, go ahead.
Do you ever come across a situation, council asked you, you look at the code and that's it, right? Do you ever come across a situation where maybe it's unclear whether something meets the code, whether there's a question? Do you ever ever have to consult with a solicitor or zoning hearing board solicitor or anybody like that in order to answer that question?
Yes,
Okay, so the code is not always exactly clear, and there could be questions that arise, and the code's not always going to answer that question.
that's correct.
Okay, no further questions.
I guess, does the board have any questions for Mr. Chas?
I guess when the original application came in for the permit, what led you to believe that it was a group home?
It fit much of the definition of group living quarters.
But
It
like
was-
in the application, they said, we're
It-
going to be housing.
Right. I don't know if it was an application or if it was in my conversations before, but
Okay.
it was made very clear that it would serving as that function. It was multiple people living together that have a disability that are being cared for, not multiple, four people living together that had a disability that were being cared for and living as one unit together.
Was there so this is the appeal of a denial of a home business permit application. So was there an underlying application that would have led to the denial, or just so the board can understand the process, I guess?
I believe so. But I'm not sure. It was back in March.
Understood. Thank you. Give it to the
Does anyone else have questions for Josh? No.
Not at
Okay.
this point.
Okay. So I guess that's the end of the testimony for Mr. Chas. Do you have any other follow-up for this portion, Ms. Richardson? No, I do not. Okay.
Might be able to find the application, I believe, like it's around, unfortunately, at the time, just for clarification, there was a change over in the zoning hearing officer when that happened. I don't know where it is, but I believe by the planning, and I guess we probably clarified this from the applicant, that it was local, and that they would have some type of special, assistant needs, so that's.
Okay. And I guess, okay, that's it for Mr. Chas. Thank you. So nothing else. I guess are we going to just go
Hey.
with just this portion of it? for now? Right.
give us just a second, please.
Okay. I guess we'll move on to unless you have anything else for this portion of the zoning request, we'll move on to the second portion. We're going to hear all of them and then rule, right?
I guess Mr. Long does have an opportunity to put on a case in
that's true.
chief for the denial portion,
Yeah, do you
But-
have anything else?
but
to
it doesn't
present?
necessarily have to be bifurcated either.
Okay.
You can,
Go with this whole,
Yeah, I was either going to present basically everything as part of this, and then it could be incorporated for the other parts later, or we can skip and go to the other parts and it would be incorporated into this essentially.
if the board would like my recommendation, I would recommend that Mr. Long present his case on the entire application, and and you can ask questions related to the specific relief therein as he goes through his presentation, and then we can take it all under advisement.
yep, I agree with that, so
Okay.
go ahead.
And is everybody okay if maybe
No, you have to stand over at the mic. I know, but he's not on camera.
He's going to bring his witnesses to the stand. He's just asking
Fine.
questions.
Okay, I mean, I just figured it'd be easier if I had there we go.
Okay,
That's like Inception.
works?
Yeah, I'll bring Ms. Griffin here, and if it's okay, I can stand here that way. I call Renisha Griffin.
Yeah, just,
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, you got to get close.
I got to get close, okay.
Can we
I'll
have
awkwardly bend over.
Ms. Griffin sworn, please?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give
Yes. Renisha Griffin.
Is that
Ms.
mic
Griffin, if you
on?
just make sure you're speaking into the microphone.
Sure. All right.
All right, and Ms. Griffin, your address is 1202 Agnew Drive in Upper Darby Township?
Yes, that's correct.
And who is your current employer?
DLA Troop Support.
I'm gonna move over here because I can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this can be off the record. Ms. Griffin, it's going to be somewhat awkward probably with Mr. Long slightly behind you, and the natural tendency is to look back at Mr. Long when you're answering the question, but just address it to the board if you don't mind, and that way hopefully the microphone, even less for the video, but just so the board can hear your testimony, keep it forward.
All right.
You want me to sit here, so that way I'm,
Will do.
Y-
Or-
I think you're fine where you are as long as Ms. Griffin stays forward.
okay.
Yes, DLA Troop Support is for the Department of Defense.
All right, and what do you do for them?
I'm a standardization specialist.
Yeah, you're going to have to talk. I cannot hear you at all, so you're going to have to talk like really close to the mic.
Okay, sorry. Yes, so I work for DLA Troop Support. It's for the Department of Defense. I'm a standardization specialist.
Okay, and you're the principal for the applicant Harold Assisted Living Homes LLC, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And this is a corporation that you formed?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the purpose of Harold Assisted Living Homes?
The purpose is to be able to provide a personal care home, but within a family setting for 4 individuals. I'm more so targeting 4 women, anywhere between the ages of 20. I'm sorry. 4 women between the ages of 20 to 30 years old who have intellectual disabilities. Just to be able to provide care with them, being able to take them out into the community and get them integrated, as well as teaching them basic life skills that are needed.
Okay, and you're proposing to do this and operate Harold Assisted Living Home at your property of 1202 Agnew Drive?
Yes,
Okay. And Harold is a nonprofit corporation, correct?
yes,
And it must be for Department of Human Services purposes?
yes.
Okay. And what made you decide to go into this line of work?
It's something that I went to school for psychology, so it's just something that's always piqued my interest. I've been working in this field part-time for about 5 or 6 years, so it's just something that's a passion of mine.
Okay. And in order to set up a personal care home for intellectually disabled adults, you need to be licensed with the Department of Human Services, correct?
Yes.
All right. And what steps have you taken to this point to become licensed with them?
So the first step, one of the first requirements are that you have to have a bachelor's degree, anything relating to, what is that, within a humanities major. So after getting my bachelor's degree, I also had to have a certification as a personal care home manager, which was 100 hours at Penn State College to be able to be certified to be able to run a facility. Also 15 credit hours for assistant living manager. And what else? I believe that is all the steps I've taken so far. I'm sorry. Also with filling out the compliance survey that had to be submitted to DHS in order to qualify for the next steps moving forward.
Okay. And you've done all those things to this point?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what else, what's the next step for you to obtain like full licensure with DHS?
So the next step, I would have to have approval from the township in order to move forward. This approval depends on everything because it's contingent upon me moving forward to the final step with submitting my paperwork to the state and receiving the occupancy permit, just stating that I would be able to have 4 women living in my home. And that would be the last step. with getting approval from you guys and then moving forward.
Okay. And provided you get zoning approval and become licensed with DHS, will you be subject to regular inspections by DHS?
Yes.
And how often do they inspect, do you know?
I believe, well, regularly they inspect once a year. However, they're capable of popping up at any time to be able to do pop-up inspections just to make sure that the facility is being ran up to code.
Okay. And you stated that your plan is to have 4 individuals living in your home?
Yes,
And this is also your home, 1202?
yes,
Okay, so you would be living there with these 4 individuals?
yes,
Would there be anybody else living there at the time
No.
with you?
no,
Just, it would be the 5 of you total?
yes, that's correct.
All right. And you have no plans to have any more than 4 in the home?
That's correct.
Okay. And what sorts of services would you provide the individuals residing at the property?
So the services that I intend to plan to provide to the individuals would be 3-course meals cooked a day. Also, helping them with anything like far as managing their finances, helping them to bathe if they need assistance with that, helping them to learn basic skills. Sometimes, like I currently work with my cousin, she has a difficult time reading. So being able to help them to assist with reading, just, and basic math and reading, spelling, things of that nature.
Okay, and what, we're saying intellectual disabilities, and these would be people who would be considered disabled under the federal, like Fair Housing Act, correct?
Yes.
And what sorts of intellectual disabilities are we talking about here?
So I would say I'm more so targeting those who are autistic, and it can be anywhere on a spectrum. Most times, they just, anyone with on the spectrum, I would say. So they would need assistance most times, again, with just basic life skills, learning how to cook healthy meals for themselves, managing their finances, being able to care for themselves, making appointments for them, getting them integrated within a community, and even some of them hold part-time jobs. So being able to get them employment as well, if that's something that they desire.
Okay. And how will you become connected with potential residents for your home?
So by connected,
I'm sorry?
could you clarify what you mean by connected, like first?
Like, where would they come through DHS?
Oh,
Would they be
yes.
referred to you? How does that happen?
Yes, so the applicants would actually be referred to me from DHS. There would have to be a need within that area that they're seeking, and at that time, there would be a process with getting them on board, just to make sure that they're the right fit, and, that I'm able to service them and provide them with the best care.
Okay, and you would have a certain amount of control over who you admit into the home?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and what sorts of, I know you mentioned already that you were saying that you're partial because of your experiences with people who are on the autism spectrum. What else might you be looking for as far as a resident?
Well, I guess it would depend. I'm mainly looking for residents that are pretty much independent and sufficient. That's the level of care that I would be able to provide to them. Like, I wouldn't be able to, of course, provide care to someone who was in a wheelchair or anything of that nature. So,
And when you say independent, you mean mobile, correct?
yes, mobile and, just need assistance with, different basic things like the ADLs, IDLs, and things like that.
Okay. And how long will the residents stay in your home?
So it depends on the person, so it's going to go according to case basis. Yes, it depends on the person, so it would be on a case-to-case basis.
Okay. So there would be no set end date for any of them?
That's correct.
And is there something that when they come to live with you that they're working towards?
Yes, working towards goals of becoming more independent, so that maybe one day they're able to live on their own.
Okay, so that could potentially be anywhere from 6 months to a year for some of these people?
Yes, that's correct.
And would some of them potentially never get to that point?
Yes, that's correct as well.
All right, and how will you be paid for your services?
So I would be paid from the state. It would be, yes, it would be funded from the state based again off, dependent upon the person and their need of level of care. So the amount could vary by person.
Okay, and would the residents also potentially have their own stipends or their own accounts, those sorts of things?
Yes, so according to PA Code 6400, each individual is supposed to receive at least $86 to each and every month out of whatever money is received from them. And you have to have like a safe box. So each individual, when they do come, they'll have their own little box that has a key that they can lock, and they're able to put their money in there in a safe spot and be able to manage it. But I would definitely have a checklist just to be able to keep track of those funds.
Okay. And part of that would be, would some of that money go towards potentially shared expenses within the house, that kind of thing?
So the money that I would be receiving from the state, yes, it would go towards expenses, food, it would go towards groceries as well as personal items, whatever the individual may need, even clothes and things of that nature, bedding, whatever is needed.
Okay. And as previously stated, you would be living in the house with them, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you would be there 24 hours a day with them?
Yes.
And other than yourself, would there be any other staff that you would employ?
Yes, so I'm interested in employing at least 2 other staff members, one during the day to be able to help me and assist, as well as one person during the evening, and then a possible floater just in case someone calls out. We have to be prepared.
Okay. And I believe we discussed the idea that you would have one of the part-time, they wouldn't be there at the same time, correct?
That's correct.
They would be staggered. So one would come sort of in the morning into the afternoon, and the other one would come the afternoons into the evening?
Yes, that's correct.
And they would not be living there or sleeping at the property, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you mentioned a floater. And I believe we discussed the idea that there might be some, from time to time, there could potentially be a nurse or somebody else who would come to the property, depending on the residents,
Exactly.
their needs, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So, of course, according to PA law, I am to have a delegated nurse as one of my staff members. So that person would come on a daily basis just to make sure if a resident is receiving medication, that they receive that medication, as well as wellness checks regularly done.
Okay. And that person wouldn't be there all day. It would mostly be to stop in, administer medication or check on a resident and then leave, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And how many bedrooms are in the home?
There are 3 bedrooms total on the second floor.
All right. And you have a bedroom in the basement, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So there are 4 total?
Yes.
All right. And how many residents, so excluding your basement bedroom, there's 3 on the second floor, correct?
Yes.
All right. How many residents per room?
So the master bedroom is big enough to have 2 residents in there. And the other 2 individual rooms would be private rooms with 1 person each.
Okay. And as we stated, the residents would have free reign of the house, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And what is, other than the 3 bedrooms on the second floor and your bedroom in the basement, can you describe the rest of the house?
So the rest of the house on the first level, there's a living room. There's a main bath that's on the first level of the home as well. And there's a kitchen and dining room area. So all within the first floor, that would be shared spaces that's available to everyone in the home.
Okay. And I'm just going to back up real quick because I realized that I've blown through this and didn't introduce documents. I'm going to show you what we marked as A1.
Okay,
That's, going to hand it to you.
thank you.
That's a corporate document for the creation of Harold Assisted Living Homes, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, and that's a true and accurate copy of that document?
Yes,
Okay, and that was filed with the Department of State as part of creation of Harold?
yes.
Okay.
Are these the documents that were already submitted with the addendum?
Yeah, if
And
we
are
don't
they-
need to, if we don't need to, I can just reference them rather than admitting them.
Are they marked in the same,
They're marked in the same manner that they are in the addendum.
Ms. Richardson, did you review the addendum packet with the, I believe it's 7, because
Seven total, yes.
A7 is not provided, correct? So A1 through A6 and A8, do you have any objection to those exhibits? Okay, you can take a moment.
Sorry.
Where's the heating and the carbon monoxide?
The only objection that I have is A6, which is the fire extinguisher and smoke detector. Or they're, that's from the Pennsylvania code, I'm not really sure of the relevance, I don't know if council.
There's I mean, not to argue the council's point, but there's a validity challenge specifically related to the fire suppression requirements under the special exception code. I mean, is there I don't think council has gotten to, correct me if I'm wrong, council, but you have not used that exhibit yet, but I'm assuming you would intend to in
I
some way,
do.
shape, or form.
I do. I mean, my only response would be they're simply sections of the PA code. They are what they are. They're law in Pennsylvania. You could take quote unquote judicial notice of them.
I think the board can take judicial notice, so unless there's a substantive objection, I wouldn't recommend the board excluding them on that basis.
Depending on the testimony or whatever council, your objection or having to say.
Understood. I think at this point, I would recommend to the board that we accept applicants A1 through A6 and A8 as included with the addendum. And we can mark them for now, and if you'll just, once we authenticate everything, if necessary, we can move for admission at the end of your testimony. But I don't think you need to go through each individual
All right, I
exhibit,
won't.
because the board's already been provided these for several days at this point.
Okay. As you saw, I was flying through the testimony anyway, and not referencing it, so, okay. All right, so we asked, other than the 3 bedrooms on the second floor, what is the setup of the first floor of the house?
Yes, so the first floor of the house has the living room, a dining room, kitchen, as well as the first floor bathroom, full bath.
And I'm going to hand you what are A3, marked as A3. These are photographs of the interior of the house. And that first photograph, it's sort of a collage. What are those photographs of?
Yes, so this is photographs of my house, 1202 Agnew Drive. So as you can see, I'll start with the picture in the center, second row, right in the center. That's going to be the living room area. And then as you walk through, you're going to walk straight past the main bathroom, which is a full bath on the first floor. And then after that, you'll proceed forward and you have the kitchen to the left and the dining room area to the right.
Okay. And then the photographs, the few photographs after that one, the next couple of pages, what are those photographs of?
Yes, so the next couple of pages, the first photograph, where it's a bedroom that would be used by one person. That's the bedroom that has the birds on the curtains. The second bedroom, we're going to call that the green room. That's going to be occupied by one person as well. And then you see here the gray room, which has 2 beds, which will be occupied by 2 residents. I'm sorry, I meant that within this bedroom, although it's not pictured here, there is a half bath.
Okay. And then the last picture is your bedroom?
Yes,
All right, and that's in the basement, correct?
yes, that's correct.
All right, and how many entrances and exits are there for the house?
3,
All right, and there's the front door, correct?
yes,
There's a side door,
yes,
that's on the first floor as well?
yes, the side door is right directly from the kitchen.
Okay, and then the basement has a direct exit out to basically the driveway behind the house, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and your house is a twin, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and we have A4, which I'll hand you.
thank you.
A4 is, these are photographs of the outside of the house, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so you're the right side of a twin, essentially, what you might call a twin?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you have a shared wall with the house next to you?
Yes.
Okay. And how many parking spaces do you have behind the house?
So I'm currently able to fit 2 vehicles behind my home.
Okay. All right, and when it comes to the residents in the home, the plan would be that you would all spend time together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And would you be cooking and eating meals together?
Yes,
All right, and part of the point is for the independent living skills would be that the residents would also be learning to cook meals and food preparation, things like that?
yes, that's correct.
Okay. And will the residents have to do chores around the house?
Yes.
What sorts of chores would they be doing?
So light cleaning, for as vacuuming, maybe wiping down mirrors, wiping down main surfaces where everyone is touching, since it's still during COVID. So, we'll be using like Lysol wipes and things like that, things that are mild and, to clean the common spaces used by everyone.
And other than chores and meals and downtime, what other activities would the residents be taking part in at the house?
So within the house, other activities that would be taking place is a time where everyone would gather each and every day, whereas though we would have some type of game activity played. Again, with working with this community of folks, I notice a lot of them tend to like video games and things like that. So video games, board games, educational games, far as puzzles, and things like that. So several different games within the house, but I also have different activities that I would like to do with them outside the home.
Okay. And would any of the residents be licensed to drive?
No,
All right. how would they get around if they need to get to appointments or other places?
Yes, so I would be transporting everyone to and from appointments, and any other public outings.
So it would only be your car at the property?
That's correct.
And potentially, if you have the additional staff, one of their cars?
Yes,
Okay. And so both cars could fit behind the house?
yes.
And just real quick to go back to the outside of the house, you're not the corner lot, correct?
That's correct.
You're the first one in from the corner?
Yes,
Okay. And if you look at A4, the third page is sort of like satellite views of the home,
yes,
correct? And there's two different ones?
yes.
All right. And you're not proposing any kind of outward changes to the property at all, are you?
No, I won't be making any changes.
Okay, so no, you're not going to be putting up a sign for Harrell Assisted Living Homes, anything like that?
No,
All right, and you previously mentioned that the residents are going to be mobile and be able to walk around, correct?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you're not going to be, there's no plans to install any kind of handicap ramps or ADA devices, anything of that nature?
No. The only thing that I will have is just grab bars. I have grab bars throughout the house within the bathroom areas and things like that. And of course, one going up the steps.
Okay. And do you have security around the house at all?
Yes, I have cameras inside my home in all the common area spaces. So that would be the living room, kitchen, dining room area, and also within the hallway area going upstairs to the second floor bedrooms. And I have cameras outside the home, a Ring camera doorbell for the front door. The side door, there is 2 cameras, and then facing the back view of the driveway, there's a camera back there as well.
Okay. And your neighborhood is a residential neighborhood? correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, and the whole point of Harrell is to give these residents the most home-like and family-like atmosphere, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, and to the best of your knowledge, your home is up to code, meaning fire code, building code, et cetera?
Yes, that's correct.
So when we started preparing for this hearing, one of the things that we looked into we were looking at the requirements for the special exception criteria, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And one of the issues that we came across was, as previously mentioned by the chair, what's known as section 550, 43B, 8A, and B. Those are the requirements that there be a sprinkler system inside the home, correct?
yes, that's correct.
And a hardwired fire alarm system, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And have you looked into or speak to a contractor, a plumber, or anybody regarding what it would take to install those kinds of systems in your home?
Yes.
And who did you speak to about that?
So I spoke with a plumber. His name was Brian Wiggs. Brian Wiggs, it's spelled Wiggs. He confirmed that it would be over $20,000 to get a sprinkler system installed into my home. Typically, he said that they don't install sprinkler systems to a home that's already built. A sprinkler system is normally installed in a commercial space, or if I was going to get it in the home, it would have to be like opened up as a shell so that they would be able to do it before the walls and ceilings and things like that were up.
Okay. All right. And based on the costs of that he quoted you for those systems, would you be able to afford that?
No.
All right, and would that present a barrier to you being able to proceed with the special exception?
Absolutely.
All right, and as part of being regulated by DHS, are there fire and safety code regulations?
Yes. So with their safety code and fire regulations, they require you to have a smoke detector on every level of the house, as well as a carbon monoxide detector, I believe I have one on every level, but I believe it's on one level at the lower level of the home. and then a fire extinguisher for every level of the home as well.
Okay, and we attached what was discussed earlier, which is the section of the Pennsylvania Code that regulates homes such as the one you're proposing it's Chapter 55 PA Code, Section 6400, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Specifically, Sections 110 and 111, which cover smoke detectors and fire alarms and fire extinguishers, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And those, we attached, you directed me to those, and we attached those as A6?
yes,
Okay. And you've reviewed those as part of your application and work with DHS, correct?
yes, that's correct.
All right. And you, to the best of your knowledge and understanding, you can meet the requirements of these code, these sections of the PA code, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. And if you were, as part of this application, if the zoning hearing board were to grant you relief or grant you a reasonable accommodation as far as those two sections for the fire sprinklers and the fire alarm, if they wanted to add potentially some reasonable regulations in between, or maybe like few more fire extinguishers, few more fire smoke detectors, that kinds of thing, above and beyond 110 and 111, would you be open to doing that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add or tell the zoning hearing board about what you're planning to do?
I mean, again, I just want to be able to provide a positive experience to those who have intellectual disabilities. It's been a passion of mine. It's been a I work as a part-time job, but I'm actually interested in just making it a part of my full-time job. And just career to be able to provide a family lifestyle within a safe neighborhood to these individuals, and being able to expose them to more with community activities and things like that to get them to just be living, to strive and things like that.
Okay, and one last thing, to the best of your knowledge, there's no other potential group home or home like this within 500 feet of yours, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And just to clarify, we reviewed the rest of the special exception criteria,
Yes,
correct? And to the best of your knowledge, you can meet all of the other suggested or requirements of the special exception criteria?
yes,
The two that you cannot meet are those fire sprinkler and the fire alarm system?
yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, no further questions.
I have a question.
I guess Ms. Richardson will have to go first, so. Ms. Richardson, do you have cross-examination?
Okay.
Board questions?
Yep, I have a couple questions. So you said that it's going to be you and four individuals, so for a total of 5.
Yes,
And you said those people are typically recommended by the state or whatever the
Yes.
agency is.
yes,
So you're unrelated to them?
yes, that's correct. I'm unrelated to them.
Okay. And then, can you explain, you mentioned that they would be possibly living there for 6 months to a year.
Yes, so it all depends on a case-to-case need. So
Okay.
there's a lot of, would you like me to provide just an example of a situation where the person would be longer than 6 months to a year?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the event that most times the age group that I'm targeting, I told you, was more like women between the ages of 20 to 30. Sometimes you come across a situation where the family is unable to care for the individual. If one of the parents has passed, and then they don't have a plan set up. So at that time, the individual would be placed into some type of group institute situation. However, they're not doing well there. So at that point in time, someone from DHS would come out, they would, evaluate my house, survey it and things like that, and see if this would be a good fit for that individual. At that time, I would have a process in place where as though I would evaluate them to see if I can care for their needs, and things of that nature. And then at that time, that person would be there, probably longer than the 6 months to a year.
Okay. Is there any situation where it would be less than that? I know you said like they would have to.
Yes, so a situation where it would be less than that is if the individual just isn't happy at the home, or if I'm not comfortable with them being there and I'm not able to provide the level of care, then a situation like that could occur. And, yes.
And then I guess if that were to happen, you would then kind of fill that bed with someone else?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then I guess you mentioned that you were able to meet all the other codes except for fire. I'll go into the fire later, but you mentioned you could meet all the other requirements of the special exception.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you look at the parking requirements?
Yes, so there wouldn't be any changes like far as an increase, with the parking requirements. I have 2 spaces outside the back of my home that would be provided for use. So I wouldn't need to extend it, or it wouldn't be an increase in traffic flow or anything of that nature.
So for a group home, the requirement is that you have 1 space per bed. So with 5 beds at the property, you would need to have 5 parking spaces.
Really? Okay, I'm sorry, I was unfamiliar with that. So I guess my question would be to you, if that's okay to ask. As far as these individuals, they wouldn't be operating any type of vehicles or things like that. They don't, they wouldn't be permitted to have a driver's license.
Well, yeah, we don't necessarily take questions. I'm
sorry.
it's something in the code that's a requirement that you
Okay.
have the 5 spaces. So I guess you don't have 5 spaces available on the property.
No.
Okay. And then I guess I had a couple questions about the fire, code that you mentioned or was part of your exhibits. You mentioned that you would be willing to go above and beyond that code requirement, which I assume is the building code, state building code.
Yes.
So I guess as part of the special exception, again, the criteria is to kind of go beyond what is required with the building code. So if you would be willing to go above and beyond, the building code, it seems like maybe you would be willing to go above and beyond with the code as it's written in the township code.
Okay, so are you referring to the sprinkler system?
If I may, can I clarify something real quick?
Sure.
So PA Code 64, 111 and 110 are not a building code. They're regulations created by the Department of Human Services for homes like this, just requiring a certain number of fire extinguishers, that
Okay.
kind of thing. They're not building code.
Okay, I guess my point was if you're so that's like a baseline, right? So that's the minimum requirement is what is written in that code. So I guess my question was, if you're willing to go above that, would it be acceptable to go beyond that with what's actually written in the township code?
So when you say that, you're referring to installing a sprinkler system?
Right, because that's what the requirement in the township code is, that you have the sprinkler system.
So.
Because it again, when you're looking at it, if there's some sort of regulation in the state group home requirement, I'm not sure where it's exactly coming from, but wherever it's coming from, I guess, again, that's a base requirement. So
Right.
the township, I guess I was looking to see if, if you're willing to go above, it seems like, this would be another way to go above that code.
Okay, so again, just to reiterate, having to go above and beyond that code with getting a sprinkler system required, that's, the township guidelines. However, with the PA state 50, with PA code 5500, as well as chapter 6400, 6100, those aren't the requirements to have a sprinkler system and, hardwired fire alarm system, as long as you have the smoke detectors as well as fire extinguishers. So for me to have to install a sprinkler system, it's going to be over $20,000 to have that installed within my home. And one of the things that I just didn't understand, I guess, when it came to that requirement by the township is just that the fact that it would be, what is the difference between the way my home would be set up with having a family, like say if I had a husband and three children, it would be, it wouldn't be required for me to have a sprinkler system installed within my home, correct?
She can't answer
Well,
questions.
I'm sorry.
again, I don't answer questions. I guess this is a
Sorry.
special exception criteria for
Sure.
a group home, which you're applying for. The special exception. So that's one of the
Sure.
conditions, again.
Yeah, I wouldn't, honestly, just with the financial, hardship that would cause, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would actually have to, a full renovation would have to take place within the areas of the home where the sprinkler system would be installed. And again, that would be upwards of over $20,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Josh, are you able to turn on the lights for us? We've hit, I don't know if you've,
A period of darkness
yeah,
back here.
it-
Yeah.
it's hard for me to see the code at this point.
Okay, yeah, I don't have any, for right now, I don't have any additional questions. Yeah, that's right. Deborah, do you have anything? Make sure your mic.
Hi, I do have a few questions since we're on the sprinkler and the fire system. So what, I understand the cost factor. What other safety precaution would you be willing to do or could you think of? And since that's a part of the code, that's a hurdle a hard hurdle to get over if it's
Yeah.
not.
So I would be willing to install extra smoke detectors throughout the house, as well as extra fire extinguishers and things of that nature. I do have a fire plan in place, like in case there was an emergency and a fire happened. There's an escape plan that's posted throughout my home as well, just to help to ensure the safety of the residents. I also have a security system that is set up so that if there's any type of smoke or any type of fire within the home, it would automatically alert first response to be able to come to the home and, take it from there.
And then I had questions around, so there will be yourself and 4 individuals living there.
Yes.
Are there ever times that someone would have to come to the property for, other than the staff, for visits? They want to visit a family member that's staying there, or they want to visit you, or are there times that you would not be there?
So there will not be any times that I wouldn't be there. Majority of the time, I plan to be there. As far as visits, yes, visits are permitted by family members it would be during the common hours between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You have to allow, I think, it's a 10-hour window, I believe, according to the PA Code 55. Far as visits, personal visits for myself, no.
Okay, so how is that managed in the event 2 of your residents have family members coming and parking?
So I would say there is plenty of parking on the surrounding areas of my home, like on the side streets there. I believe that's Derman Avenue. If there's a parking space available out back, they could park there, or off the side street parking, there's plenty of parking there.
And how do you manage it? Do you get a heads up in advance that
Yes.
so-and-so's family member?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think you were explaining earlier on that you will teach them some skill sets,
Yes.
but do they ever Do your residents ever leave the premises to go to a job or to go,
Yes,
not on their own, but maybe on their own? But do they leave the premises and then they have a timeline within they have to be back?
yes, so there would be a timeline in which they would have to be back. Whenever any resident would leave the home, they would be escorted out by a staff member, so myself or someone else, or maybe both of us. But yes, there would be certain core hours in place to ensure that everyone is back in the home within a decent time.
Okay, and this might be an obvious question, but I know you said you had a full-time job, and if this goes through, you would give that up so that you could, okay,
Yes.
okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
Good evening. I'm looking at the picture that you provided that shows the back of the property, and it looks like there is a garage.
Yes.
Is that where your bedroom is? Has that been converted?
No. So I actually have, the garage is just by itself. That's totally, it's isolated from the basement area where I sleep. No, it's not converted. No changes have been made there.
Okay. And the other portion of the, has a back door, and it looks like there is a cement pad that's raised and elevated.
Yes.
And then it has, I guess that's only about 3 feet wide. It's wild ass, yes, but, then it's grass. Is that intended by you in your mind to be a parking area?
I'm sorry, so are you referring to using the grass space as a parking area?
Yeah. In the
No.
back of the property.
No, so, when I was saying that there's actually, you're able to park 2 vehicles, I'm stating within the blacktop area, you're able to fit 2 vehicles there. If I had to use the grass area, that would actually provide space for an extra vehicle.
How long is your driveway?
I'm not sure.
Are you stacking cars one behind each other?
I have before, yeah, I had 2 vehicles, so I would stack them behind each other.
That'd be like 60 feet.
I have a follow-up question. You said you parked 2 vehicles there?
I
Or
did
like you
in
have?
the past,
Okay.
yes, in the past.
Do you have an office there?
Yes.
So where is your office? What area?
So my office is in the living room area. Let me see, I'll go back to the exhibit to see if I'm able to show you guys. Okay, so it's not pictured there, but I do have an office space, well, just a desk that's used for my office within the living room area, which is on a common area.
And the reason I was asking, thinking that the staff would be, for some reason, using the office space while they're there? Okay.
Yes,
But it's on the first floor?
yes.
And how much of that space is dedicated for the office?
It's not a big space. It's like maybe, I guess, like maybe 4 by 6 or, yeah, it's not that big of a space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Where's the furnace?
The furnace?
Furnace?
Yes, the
Is it
furnace is,
in
would
the
be,
basement with you?
yes,
Do you have a carbon monoxide
yes,
detector there?
yes.
Greg, do you have
Yeah,
questions?
so a couple questions. The first, and you may have mentioned some of this, it's just been a little hard for me to hear you, so I hope
Sure.
I don't make you repeat yourself too much.
Fine.
How many bedrooms total are there in the house?
So there's 4 bedrooms total.
And I'm guessing there's 3 on the upstairs and 1 on the lower level?
Yes, that's correct.
And your bedroom's the lower level?
Yes.
Bedroom, okay. I'm sorry, Bob?
I thought she said hers was in the basement.
Yeah. you said there would be outside staff to assist you in the operation of the group home?
Yes.
And how many staff members do you anticipate?
So I anticipate there being 2 staff members, one for the day and one for the evening. I would be there during the whole time period to be able to assist them. And then also I would have a delegated nurse that would come out for, I don't know, maybe anywhere from 10 minutes to a half hour, just to, if there needs to be medication administered to the residents.
And you are going to be providing transportation for the residents, correct?
Yes,
And just you?
yes.
And who will be remaining with the residents who are not being transported?
So that would be, I would leave them with the other staff member, but in my mind, I would plan for us all to be together when we, are going out into the community.
Okay. Are all residents of the, and I think you may have said this, but are all residents of that you are proposing over 18 years of age?
Yes.
How long have you owned the property?
7 years?
So 2015.
Yes.
What? Why are you choosing to institute this use on the property now?
Well, it was something that I've had in mind, a goal that I wanted to work towards. However, it's taken me some time with getting started, to be able to even get through the process and understand what it entailed.
And you also stated, and I believe I heard this correctly, that your focus or particular area of specialization would be individuals on the autism spectrum.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think that it's fairly common knowledge, or and I may be assuming, but you can correct me because you work in the field. But isn't it true that a common aspect of being on the having autism spectrum disorder is sensitivity to loud noises and startling events of that nature?
Yes, so some of them, again, that would be according to a case-to-case basis. Some individuals do have sensitivity to noise, sound, light, and things like that, but not all of them.
In the event of an emergency in the home, with residents, say of on the autism spectrum, do you believe smoke alarms and fire extinguishers to be sufficient to protect the safety and life of those individuals in the event that there's a
Yes,
fire?
yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
I guess I'll have a follow-up to Greg's comment. And I don't know if you get, so you're in the basement, right?
Yes,
And they're on 2 floors above you.
yes.
So in the event of a fire, how would you access, if they need help, because, that's why you're there to help them, how would you do that when your access point is out the back? And theirs may be through a different, you mentioned you had 3 different access points. They might be, they're on, a level that's 2 stories above where you are.
Yes, so of course, again, with the PA code 55, you have to have different fire drills, different meeting places. You have to have those things in place. So of course, we would be required to have practice fire drills, at least once a month, just to be able to get them in the habit of where we would meet in case of a fire. So, and then there would be information posted throughout the house on every level as an escape plan. They would, state where they're located at and where we would be meeting at outside of the home. But of course, with me having cameras in the home and things like that, I get alerts anytime there's any type of motion or things of any of that nature. And again, with the Ring alarm system that I have, it's connected to be able to alert first response if there's any type of smoke or fire, within the home.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, to follow up, wouldn't the presence of a fire suppression system afford you and your staff and the residents of your home more time to ensure a safe evacuation?
Yeah.
So I don't know how to answer that question. I would say, I guess so.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. How long do you expect to be doing this activity? How many years?
Forever. I mean, until retirement age. I'm sorry, did I?
I'm just driving at the point that the fire suppression system may be a cost of $20,000, but it's going to save you and save your people, if they're in that house, save their life. And if you amortize it over a 20-year period that you might be doing this, it's not that much per year.
So with getting a sprinkler system installed, I see your point is to make where as though it would be, I guess, provide better safety measures for myself as well as the residents.
Yes.
But it's just not that simple to have it installed within the home. So installing this sprinkler system would actually involve like a full demo and renovation. Ceilings would have to be taken down, and they would actually have to tap into, I believe, my plumber was telling me the water line outside of the home or something like that, that would be involved to make sure that there's enough water and pressure coming through that sprinkler system. So it wouldn't just involve just the $20,000 for the initial investment for the sprinkler system. There will be ceilings, sheetrock, electrical work that would have to be rewired. It would be a total, overhaul of work that would be involved. So 20,000 is the starting point, but it would be way more than that.
Okay.
I'll follow up
Do you,
with,
I
can I
have
follow?
one other
Oh, yeah, go
follow-up.
ahead.
Do you intend to have like a crash bar on your front door to allow the people to get out if you aren't able to get up there in time?
I'm sorry, a trash?
A crash bar, like you
Crash,
push,
like
Oh, okay, yes.
crash bar.
Yes.
so you intend to have that?
Yes, I would be interested, of course, and then, whatever is needed to be able to have that as a safety measure if it's going to make things more safe for the residents.
I guess I had a follow-up. You said it would be more than, you testified before that it would be 20,000. Now you're saying it would be more than 20,000? So did you receive an estimate?
Yes, so I received a verbal estimate over the phone for a sprinkler system. So at the time when I spoke with the plumber, he told me that to get the sprinkler system installed, it would be 20,000. However, he was under the impression that my home, wasn't already built and established, that it was open as open shell where it would, have beams and things like that exposed so that they would just come in and install this sprinkler system as such. But however, because I already have, walls, as you can see within the exhibits, walls, ceilings, and things like that, that's already up, all of that would have to be torn down. And then they would be able to go in. So that would require me to contract another contractor to be able to do just the demolition of the home, to be able to have the plumber come in and install a sprinkler system. So as you can imagine, that would be very expensive to do and time consuming as well. This wouldn't be something, it would delay me, of course, from opening up the business for, I don't know, quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's a cost to it, obviously, but I don't think that that's why it was put in the ordinance. I think the primary objective is to save people's lives, right? So, again, you're looking at, you have a base requirement as to what you would be requiring. I think, this is something that would be above and beyond that in order to protect the life, safety, and health of those residents. At a, they have some sort of intellectual disadvantage to, a standard resident.
And I understand that. I guess my whole basis is, I have taken extra safety measurements and precautions as to, I don't foresee there being any fire upstairs on the second floor because, of course, they don't have access. It's not like there's access to a stove or anything like that that would light fire. I'm not going to allow any candles or things that would be considered flammable items to eliminate just the risk of there causing any fires throughout the entire home. So, I mean, I'm open to taking, safety measurements that are well within my means to be able to do so to ensure the safety of the residents.
I don't have any other questions, board members. No public
Yeah.
comment. So.
We'll note for the record that there are no members of the public to make public comment. I guess, do we afford the council the opportunity to make
Yeah.
summations
Yes.
and argument?
Yes.
Ms. Richardson, if you want to make a summation, just please find an available microphone.
These are the pictures and that as well. Okay, thank you.
So the township requests that the zoning hearing board uphold the decision of the zoning officer that the group home use proposed for the property located at 1202 Agnew in the R3 zoning district requires a special exception. The applicant has admitted during testimony and in its own documents provided that it meets the direct definition of group living quarters. It has 4 or more unrelated individuals. At this point, it says 5, which would be the applicant, plus an additional 4 individuals that have intellectual disabilities. They're on the autism spectrum. They'll be living together. The applicant also shared that there would be approximately 3 non-resident staff, a nurse for meds that would come occasionally, 1 daytime staffer and 1 nighttime staffer, and then that they would be using the common use of the living, eating, bathroom, and eating areas. We do understand that council has made the position, or taken the position more specifically, that this use suits the definition of a family that's provided in the zoning code. That is correct. However, it actually fits the definition of group living quarters, and that's why we're here, and that's why Mr. Chass made the correct decision in denying the business permit for it to go in front of the zoning hearing board to request a special exception. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you. So a basic tenet of zoning law is that a zoning code should be read in favor of the property owner, and it should be for the least restrictive use of their property. I provided a number of cases cited in the addendum, including Hartman versus Zoning Hearing Board of Cumberland Township, City of Clareton versus Zoning Hearing Board of City of Clareton. There's a whole line of cases out there where group homes such as this, or organizations or personal care homes like this, are found to be families and meet the definition of family. That's the entire purpose of the Federal Fair Housing Act and the ADA, Americans with Disability Act. The idea is to give these individuals the chance to live in a family-like setting in in a residential neighborhood. So while yes, maybe technically it meets the definition of group home, it also meets the definition of family. That's the least restrictive version of the use. That's a by right use within this township, in the zoning district in which Ms. Griffin resides. That is why we are requesting that it be permitted as a by right use for a home-based business, in order to give her the ability to do this, and the ability for these people to live in this, in that setting. They are, as was testified to, under the definition of family, they are single nonprofit housekeeping unit. They're doing all their cooking on the premises. They're basically living as a single unit. They are, they'll have run of the entire dwelling. They'll live and cook together as a single unit. They'll share expenses, rent, utilities, other household expenses. And the group is permanent and stable, as Ms. Griffin stated. The idea is that this is to be their home and they're to be there as long as they need to be. There's no end date for when they come. It's not a set, like, it's not like a halfway house or something like that where there's going to be a revolving door. There's not going to be a revolving door. The idea is for them to live there, live as a family, and eventually, when they're ready, be able to move on at some point. And maybe some of them will, and maybe some of them won't. They may be there basically permanently with her. So that's our position on the appeal. As far as the special exception itself and the alternative, if the board does not see fit to make it a family, there's been a lot of talk about the fire safety regulations. And also I would move to amend, it's probably, if I can, I would move to amend and include the parking regulations. I think with everything else, we may have missed that as part of our reasonable accommodation request. But,
We'll discuss that.
I'm sorry?
We'll discuss that in exec.
Okay. On that point, I would say that as Ms. Griffin stated, a lot of these regulations and a lot of the conversation that's happened here tonight are surrounding the idea of a group home, thinking of an institution, of a larger home where people would stay with a bunch of staff, that kind of thing. Really what the whole point of this is, and should be, and under the FHA is supposed to be, is that it's a home-like setting. These are regulations you would not require of Ms. Griffin to have in her own home if she was living there with her own disabled children or disabled family members. You wouldn't require her to have a wired-in fire alarm system. You wouldn't require her to have a sprinkler system installed in the house at the cost of tens of thousands of dollars. But these are things that are being required for people to live in this situation, and they've created a barrier to entry. And that's our argument, is that they're discriminatory impact, and we're requesting a reasonable accommodation, which this board has the power to do under the law, as I've cited in our addendum. It needs to be reasonable and it needs to be necessary. It's necessary in the fact that, as she testified, the baseline is $20,000 to install a sprinkler system in a home. That's when he was talking about a home that he thought was under construction and he would have full access to the pipes and things like that in the wall. What he then explained to her is that because her home is built out, you're now requiring demolition and rebuild in order to install this. So the price is going to go up from there. So it creates a barrier to entry, and it's necessary for her to have this accommodation. When the board was asking her questions about the PA code versus the township's code and the township standards, what we were getting at with our line of questioning is that there could be something in between that. The PA code is a baseline. The PA code is what Department of Human Services for these types of homes requires as a bare minimum. She can meet that. She could meet some additional safety measures, but there's a big difference between extra fire extinguishers and smoke detectors and tens of thousands of dollars for a sprinkler system. So that's what we're getting at here. We're trying to come up with a reasonable a reasonable accommodation to allow these folks to have this service and for her to be able to provide this service. The idea is for them to be living as a family. What a lot of these regulations do is they turn this into an institution rather than a family home. And that's what we're asking, is for the board to create some measure of accommodation, or if you want to style it as a variance, whatever it is. And we're willing to work, as she stated, she's willing to work with this board, with the township, codes enforcement, whatever, to come up with some kind of happy medium if necessary. But at this point, with that cost, it's just not, she's not able to do it. And on the parking issue, she stated that none of these people are going to be, none of these residents are going to be licensed. She's going to be the only one driving. She might have one staff member that comes from time to time. She's got 2 parking spots behind the building. That's all she needs. And as far as the questions regarding visitors and people coming, again, these are the kinds of questions that don't come up when you're talking about Ms. Griffin just living in her home. She has every right as a resident living in her family home to have visitors come and see her, and to have people come and stay, or come stop by and say hi and visit, whatever. These people should have every right to do that as well. I understand the township wants to have some modicum of regulation, reasonable regulation, to give them the ability that it doesn't take over the neighborhood. And I posit to you that really we're talking about 3 to 4 residents in her home, 4 maximum. She's happy to have a condition or cap on it that it can be no more than 4. It's no different than a family of 5 living in a house like this, and really will have less impact probably, because the family of 5, you're probably going to have a bunch of cars in the neighborhood and people parking different places. There's no requirement in the code that you suddenly have to have parking spots for every person in the neighborhood, or every person in the house, or every bed in the house when you have when just a quote normal family. So that's where we're asking for these reasonable accommodations to allow this use to proceed, for her to provide this service to these people. So, thank you.
Mr. Long, and I'm going to ask this question, and maybe a bit unorthodox, but I meant to ask it during Ms. Griffin's testimony. You'll speak of reasonable accommodation, and you did state that a reasonable accommodation not only has to be reasonable, but it also has to be necessary. And you can address this. You can ask Ms. Griffin to address it since she's still sworn. Where is the necessity in 4 additional people residing in this home?
Well, the necessity is, under the case law, the necessity is,
Under the case law, it says if you're going to exceed a certain number that is defined as family, in the most recent Pennsylvania case law, there can be a requirement that you show that it's necessary in some way to exceed the base definition of family. So,
well, that's one case. The case, if I remember, speaks to that particular case is talking about the number of family. It goes from, I think the number was 4, they were proposing 8, they went down at 6. And that's where the reasonable accommodation and the discussion in that case. If I remember, if my memory serves me from that case, reasonable accommodations, it's not limited to just the number of people in the family. It can be whatever creates a barrier, whatever is necessary to provide and give these individuals equal opportunity to have this service and to live in this regard. So in this regard, it's not about the number of people in the home. It's about basically a barrier to this even being set up in the first place. So it's necessary to have this reasonable accommodation in order to allow them to even have this home in the first place.
I think the distinction here is you're asking the board to make modifications, and I'll use that term very loosely, premised on four additional individuals residing in this dwelling with Ms. Griffin without addressing the necessity. I'm giving you that opportunity. Why 4?
Well, it's,
Why not three?
I don't think I don't think we're seeing eye to eye on this, and I don't.
I'm trying to look for an
So-
answer to that question, though. It's why four?
Why four individuals in
Would
the
three
home?
people require the modification?
Any? Oh, meaning group home is a minimum of four.
So why four if you can't meet the requirements?
So I guess there's not, if I can call Ms. Griffin up.
Sure.
If I may review something real quick, just to make sure I ask the right question in the right way. Sorry, let me just. So, Ms. Griffin. I'm sorry. Right. So, Ms. Griffin, the definition of group living quarters is four or more unrelated individuals, correct?
Yes,
So in order, if you have four individuals, you would have to meet the requirements of the group living quarters criteria under the special exception. Do you understand that?
yes, I understand.
Could you do this business with three individuals in the home?
Yes,
Okay, so if you can do it with three individuals, that means you would fall under the criteria outside of the definition of group living quarters, correct?
yes,
Would you be willing to do that
yes,
in order to be able to move forward with this?
yes,
Okay. So you could make that work with
yes.
three?
Yep, three
Okay.
would be fine.
Are there any questions based on the additional, any questions
No.
based on the additional testimony of Ms. Griffin?
I don't have any.
Anything from Ms. Richardson?
No question. Can we go back in exec session?
We'll recess into executive session.
All right.
All right, we'll go back on the record. At this time, the board is going to request from the parties memoranda of law or findings of fact and conclusions of law, however you want to present your arguments to the board, and we'll have them be due August 16th, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And the board is going to continue this hearing until 7 p.m. on August 23rd, 2022 in council chambers of the municipal building to take public comment and render a decision on this matter. Any objection from the parties? Okay. Seeing none, thank you.
Right. I think that concludes our meeting, so I'll have, make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. See you next month.